My name is Charles Gaines, and I'm an artist living in Los Angeles. I'm also faculty at the California Institute of the Arts. I was born in Charleston, but I moved to Newark. I went to an art high school. Arts High School is the first art specialized high school in the country. That's important because it indicates how being in art was something that was with me my whole life. Among some families, there's a traditional fear of going into the arts, and it weighs very heavily on black families because of the difficulty of survival. And going into the arts, you're stacking the deck even more against yourself. So I think I was lucky enough to have a mother like that. She thought she was blessed. And that optimism extended itself to this idea about what their kids are going to do with their future. What's best is best and it's going to work out. And if it doesn't, then we'll work hard to make it work out. Having that kind of a worldview made them less sort of authoritarian in terms of what their kids should do. I attended Rochester Institute of Technology through the year 66 and 67. And went into the MFA program in painting. I discovered when I was in graduate school, I had a problem with making the paintings. Whatever it is that I produced out of it seemed arbitrary. It didn't seem to be connected to me at all. Out of both of those books, they got a central idea that helped me understand you don't need the idea of the subjective unconscious in order to make a work of art. I could find another way of making art. If I could do that through a system, that might be much more satisfying to me. The first work I did was called Regression Series. I considered a grid and used the grid to calculate a kind of mathematics where the vertical axis and the longitudinal axis would be used in a kind of system of multiplication. I would then multiply the vertical by the horizontal and the shape would get bigger. And then I'd multiply the vertical and horizontal and the shape would get even bigger. And it would continue to grow that way. I can't help but look at this form metaphorically. I see this nature metaphor going. I should work with an organic form. So I decided to work with trees. I was driving on the highway once and I looked at a walnut tree orchard. The concept of working with nature came from that. Each individual walnut tree was different from each other. Within the framework of this general concept, there's an infinite number of variations. I began a series where I began to plot the shape of the trees on plexiglass. Taking advantage of the idea of the layering, I began to see the layering as a language of transparency. In the Plexibox series, there are actually two different types of work. One where the gridded tree on the face of the plexi covers a photograph of the tree, and the other is the gridded tree on the front covers a painting of an exploded tree that is used in the front image. After that, I thought, well, maybe I can explore some of the other concepts that I was exploring earlier. So for my third show at Paula Cooper's, I used the same process by layering the shape of faces on top of each other, using the Plexibox as a form to do that. I titled that piece, Identity Politics. The idea was based upon using faces of the major theorists and thinkers and philosophers that helped develop the idea of the subject, subjectivity, and identity, all the way from Aristotle to the present day. So I had the idea of layering and sequence their faces on top of each other's, which would include Aristotle, Karl Marx, it included Dolores Huertas, Malcolm X was in the series. The figures that I chose to represent in this piece span 2,000 years of human thought on the matter of subjectivity and identity. One of the significant ideas in the world that helped us form and shape the way we see things. There's a whole panoply of things that are engaged and participate in the making of a work of art. You activate that as an individual, but you don't have control over all of that. So how do you explain that? Because things happen not as a consequence of your subjectivity, but because of the consequence of their own, the Faustian would call fitness. I didn't create all of the things that's happening in this work from subjectivity. The world also participated in that process. And when you look at a work of art, you're seeing this very complex object where my subjectivity is only a part. The second work that I'm showing there is a work called sound text. What I do is I get a political text and I translate the letters of the text into musical notation. And after doing that translation, then I arrange for a piano score. In other words, I take the line produced by the translation and I add to that harmony, and it plays out as a piano work. Sound text is a work where the political text that I start with can be seen on monitors where the text scrolls. The music is so melodic, and you would expect an arbitrary system to produce cacophony. The same modernist model created a binary between our feelings and our intellect. And it assigned to, in the realm of production, what is appropriate for our intellect and what's appropriate for our feelings. The reason you think that is because of a certain kind of discourse that's been put politically inserted in the world that creates this binary that separates these two parts of our understanding, as Kant would say, in order to facilitate one or the other for the benefit of whoever's in control. Essentially, I wanted to show that you can produce visual pleasure without the subject, which seems to me a no-brainer, because we can walk through the world all the time and see things that are visually astonishing, and a human being had not even been involved in it at all. If I could show that the foundation of visual pleasure, there's an intellectual component, then this would help in debunking this idea of beauty in art. So if I could say that, well, visual pleasure is produced by something that had nothing to do with my own subjectivity, then I can critique that idea, because my end product is not to make something beautiful. My end product is to make something critical. You're talking about certain concepts of misogyny or race, so some of these sort of social problems that we have in the world. One of the problems that we have in the world is racism, and racism is built upon the idea of visual pleasure. We learn beauty, we learn pleasure. There's no universal pleasure, there's no universal beauty. The question is often asked, particularly with political art, and in many ways I look at my work as political. Can art change politics? The way I think art operates is that those ideas that we find in works of art, we ultimately find in the general culture, even political ideas. When I started exhibiting, I exhibited in a couple of New York galleries, John Weber and Leo Castelli. I was the first black artist to show in either gallery. And I was only one of maybe a handful of black artists of that generation. The generation before with Romare Bearden and Norman Lewis, there were just like a handful of black artists who were being exhibited. And I look at the art world now, I mean, just, what was it? I was just in New York a few weeks ago. There must have been, more than a dozen shows with black artists. I mean, half of the shows had women. And as I said, it's not there yet because women are still underrepresented in the art world, and minorities, in general, like white artists still overpopulate the art world in terms of if you consider it by the demographics of population, but still it's quite different. Now that's what I call a political change. Right? It was a tough one. It was not easy, but it did it.